There are benefits to sharing our story personally, relationally. It is and can be an important part in our healing and growth, and also relationally in connecting us with other people, helping other people, and deepening some of the connections and relationships that we have. Welcome to the podcast, Empowered by Design. I'm your host, Dr. Liz, a licensed psychologist and owner of Visionistas by Design Wellness Boutique in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. This podcast is about the power of connection and a proactive approach to mental health and overall wellness. It's about finding and owning your power right now and using it for good by nurturing the connection of body, mind, heart, soul, and spirit. Empowered by Design podcast delivers psychological concepts and practical strategies with a real-life approach, designed to empower health and wellness, optimal performance, authentic connection with yourself and others, and purposeful, joyful living. Be well, live empowered, dream, design, deliver. Hello and welcome to the Empowered by Design podcast. I am Dr. Liz. This is episode 69 and I am so excited to be here with you today. Today's episode is so very special, important, and I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this topic more than today. So in different episodes. And I know as I'm preparing for this episode and have been thinking about it and pondering it, that we've already talked about it in certain ways. We are talking today about sharing our story, sharing your story, sharing our stories. And if you are listening to this podcast for the first time, welcome. I am so glad that you have found me, this podcast. I'm thrilled to have you here. Welcome. If you are a returning listener, welcome back. Thank you for coming again. And if you are here, it is highly likely that you have a story to share. I mean, we all do, right? We all have a story to share. And if you really think about it, it can be a big story. It can be your story, your life narrative, depending on where you are in your journey. But we all have little stories to share here and there, right? Throughout our days, throughout our weeks. And I would just invite you to think about right now, when you hear me say share your story or share a story, what pops into your mind? A story about, what happened over the weekend, or a story that happened at work or at school or at home, and or your big story, your story. Today we're going to be talking about sharing your story, sharing our stories. And I'm going to get into why this is happening now, and also considerations when you have a story to share, whether it is the big story of your life, your narrative, your personal narrative, or if it's just a little story that you're sharing with others. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the considerations that go into sharing a story, sharing your story. Why this is important to me, where this is coming from as far as the timing right now. If you've listened to before last week, I talked about, my recent trip to Los Angeles for the Mom Summit. Whew, that is a fun episode that's coming in the future of more in detail of just the experience that was the Mom Summit. But a couple of things that came from that, as far as timing goes. So I'm telling you, why now? Why are we talking about this now? One of my main takeaways from the Mom Summit, so it was a collection of women, moms in marketing, media. There's another M I'm forgetting, but it was women who are sharing their stories and who have done so in a courageous way on blogs, in podcasts, in books, and have done so for different reasons, which we will come into as we go through this. But typically, the story begins with a need to get it out, right? A need to share, to outlet the story. And the women at this conference recognize that through sharing their stories, they not only benefited personally by releasing the tension, the pressure, the stress that can come when we hold it all inside, and that by sharing our story, we connect. We not only have benefits personal, but we have benefits relational. We connect with others. We have the experience of feeling less lonely, feeling less isolated, and hearing others say, "Oh, me too, that happened to me," or I understand. Maybe that didn't happen to me, but I understand that, the emotion that I'm feeling when you tell me this, when you share your story and the emotions that came, that were there, that were present during and after. I connect with you on that. That sharing your story can be helpful to others in an inspiring way, inspiring courage and bravery. We cannot always relate with everyone's story, the context, the nitty-gritty details of this thing happened or I survived this thing. We all have our own path. We all have our own journey. We all have our own backgrounds, our personal history, our family, our culture, our experiences. And we all are human, and we share in the human connection of how we progress through our days, how we journey through our stories. And so I invite you today, as you're listening to the things that I'm sharing with you today, the considerations about the power that comes from sharing our story, I invite you to reflect on your own, to reflect on when you have experienced as a listener the sharing of a story, and the power that you have experienced all around those aspects of sharing a story. Think about it personally. Ponder on it, reflect on it. When I say think about, right, we think of the mind, and if you've heard me before anywhere, I'm going to say it happens not only in your mind, but it is an experience of your body, tuning into what happens when you're listening to someone's story, when you're sharing yours. What happens in your body? What happens in your heart? The emotional pieces that come. What happens in your soul? That connection to your values, your identity, your essence, your beliefs, and spirit. Pulling all of those together in a way that is connecting in a way that is magical and a way that is unique, but also can be universal in a human way. So tune in, body, mind, heart, soul, and spirit. I've already invited you to think about, to ponder on what came up when I said sharing your story, what you thought about when you read the title for this episode. You have a story. We all have a story. Another reason that this is appropriately timed is that it is Mental Health Awareness Month in May of 2022 when I am recording and publishing this podcast episode. The timing is right to talk about the power, the importance, the benefits, the considerations of sharing your story. When I arrived home from LA, from the Mom Summit, with a renewed energy and energy of joy and passion and purpose and space and time to do something, a call to action, if you will, right? So we attend conferences to learn, to grow, to connect. There's lots of different reasons that people attended the Mom Summit. For me, learning, I love it. I say that all the time. I love learning, and I also love the power of connecting with others. I love connection. I love learning. I love growing. I love connection. I love fun. And all of those things, check, happened when I went with my sister-in-law, Erin, who will be joining me on a future episode to talk more about both of our experiences at Mom Summit, and absolutely different ones, different objectives and different experiences because we're different people. But we had an amazing time together and connecting, and that will be coming as well. But so Mom Summit, one of the huge takeaways for me was share your story. And there were workshops of how to do that. And in my own consideration, right, I'm reflecting on sharing my story, and I'm like, wow, I have been. I've been sharing my story, lots of my stories throughout the birth and the journey of this podcast. And so I recognize that my work as a psychologist is unique in that I am a place where the invitation to share your story is one of healing and growth. Healing is typically why people walk through my door. Something is stressful. Something feels broken. Something needs attention, treatment. And we walk together in a collaborative way through this process of healing and growth. And in that is the invitation to share your story. So there is that piece of my work, my life, my passion, my mission as a psychologist is to be the place where people can feel safe and trusting to share their story. And it can be painful, and it can be hard and difficult and yucky, and it can feel terrible at times, with the objective that, with the goal, with the vision, with the purpose that over time it will feel better. There will be healing and there is growth. There will be healing and there will be growth. When you've heard me before say how much I love my work, and so this podcast came from a passion and mission for me to expand that platform of allowing the tools, the strategies, the concepts, the information that I deliver to others and have done over the years in my work as a psychologist, as a therapist, to also create a platform for expanding the reach and recognizing that going to therapy is a privilege. And all too often, we bump up against the lack of resources, the lack of opportunity, the need for more availability, the need for more resources, the need for more therapists, the need for more counselors, the need for a shift in how we conceptualize this so very important aspect of our healing and growth process of being able to seek treatment, get treatment, stay in treatment, the accessibility. Another topic for another podcast, but it's a consideration for this one as well. And so in my work, I sit with one person in an individual therapy space, and over the course of my work, I have seen the power of gathering together people in a space for healing and growth, in group therapy, in support groups, in group coaching programs, in workshops, in this podcast. You are maybe one person listening to this right now today, but somewhere out there are others listening to this very same podcast. They are your community. They are your support people. And I say that, with a little bit of like, you can't see them, but know that they're there. Know that you are not alone. And so my goal, my dream is to continue building a community of support and encouragement. And so you are part of that. And you can do that here by listening, by connecting with me in the other spaces that I invite connection apart from this podcast. At Visionistas by Design, we have lots of different programs and places for connection. You can find resources in your area for in-person connection. You can go on my website, drliz.com/resources. That's drlyz.com/resources to find mental health resources in your area, because sometimes it needs to be in the presence of a professional, a provider, a psychologist, a therapist, a counselor, someone who is licensed, who has training to hear your story and also help you heal, to offer treatment. And also through this Mental Health Awareness Month, there are tons of resources you will find out there if you open up to them. One of them that I will mention here and that I mentioned last week is NAMI.org. That's NAMI.org. Here is a place where you can share your story anonymously, and we'll talk about that consideration. And in your community, in your family, in your friend group, where you have safety and trust. If you don't, there are considerations here as well for that during this podcast. And so those are the reasons why this is so important to me and also for you in bringing this. Why is this? The timing is right. The passion, always, every single episode I bring to you, regardless of what month it is, Mental Health Awareness Month, I'm so excited that it's here because it gives us an extra layer of focus, not only here, but on social media. I'm seeing it on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on the internet, on TV, on commercials, on programming. I'm seeing it, and that is so encouraging because for far too long, mental health has been buried in the closet, shoved under the rug, stigmatized, shamed. Find the places that resonate with you, where you see other people sharing their stories, inviting the sharing, inviting the connection. Because mental health is health. It doesn't have to feel so heavy and burdensome. It might right now, and that's okay. And as you take steps towards sharing your story, speaking your truth, talking with others, listening to others, it becomes lighter, emotionally lighter. Healing and growth can occur. Considerations for sharing your story in this process of normalizing it. Normalize asking for help. Normalize sharing your story. Normalize taking care of yourself, because that is part of this process as well. Know that as we talk through this episode, this is setting a foundation for storytelling, short story sharing, and listening and responding to other people's stories. So we will be talking about considerations for you if this is something you feel like, oh, wow, this sounds like something that could really be helpful, or it's intriguing to me, or it's time for me to share my story. We will also talk about the listener. Considerations for if you are hearing someone else's story, because that can be sometimes equally as emotional, and sometimes we don't know what to do, how to respond. So we will talk about that as well. So we are building the foundation because there are some amazing stories coming on this podcast. I have some guest speakers lined up who have amazing, inspiring, empowering stories that I cannot wait to bring to you. So today, absolutely, you are going to be hearing some nuts and bolts of what are some considerations when we share our story. I invite you to come back, because even when we are hearing stories of others, you will learn and you will grow and you will be wowed and amazed and inspired. And that is the point. That is the goal and mission here. So you've heard some amazing stories already on this podcast. I invite you to go back through, if you are a newcomer, and look through some of the titles and see what catches your eye and tune in. I have some amazing, amazing friends, colleagues, people in my life who have touched my life, and I love that I have this place to bring them here to inspire you as well. So getting into considerations, we're going right back to elementary school. When you consider sharing your story, think of the W's, the why, the what, the when, where, how, and to whom. Why, what, when, where, how, and to whom. We're going to go through those here today in the context of sharing your story, talking about something that is important to you, something that you feel moved, feel inspired to share with others, or other one person. It can be one person, it can be many, and it can also be sharing it with yourself. So we'll talk about that as well. When you think about the why, what is your objective? Again, so keep in mind as we go through these considerations that there is not always a right or wrong, a yes or no. The polarity of that we like to put things into boxes like I should or I shouldn't, I will or I won't. Because there's gray area. Your story is your story. Your considerations are your considerations. Mine are my considerations. And the point of this is to get you thinking, to outline some of the things to consider, to think about, to ponder, reflect on as you get ready and prepare. And maybe you are already sharing your story, and that's great too. You will grab something from this today. So what is your objective? Why are you wanting to share this story today, now, in the future? There can be different reasons, as I've talked about, personal, relational, in healing and in growth. I have the amazing opportunity in a job that I love to hear lots and lots of stories. And there's a lot of different reasons why we tell them and different aspects of benefits that can come from sharing our story. Sometimes just getting it out, venting it, releasing it, purging it from our bodies, our souls, our minds, right? Because here that all of those things are connected, and sometimes just getting the story out is necessary and helpful. When you're thinking about your why, I'm going to move the to whom, the audience, up here, even though I said it last in our list of the considerations, because it's really important to understand and to think about and consider, who are you telling this story to? And there's some specific things to think about as you prepare to do that. But as you are thinking about why, that's part of it. Why are you telling this? Why are you telling this to this person, sharing it with these people, this audience? And being able to consider that there's power, there's magic in storytelling. This is something that has been around forever, right? The healing of stories, the generational effect of telling our stories and passing them along. So this is nothing new, but it is powerful, and it is healing. And so it can be for sharing and inspiring, and also in that, think about the person or persons with whom you are sharing. Consider your audience. To whom are you sharing or telling this story? Because in sharing your story, it's important to have and to understand your level of safety, of trust, the age, the maturity, the developmental level of your audience, thinking about how you share a certain aspect of a story. So even though we outlined the why, the what, the when, the how, the where, they're mixed up, right? They all are considered. They overlap, basically, is what I'm saying. So it can be helpful to, when you're thinking about this, consider the audience. Consider there are people in our lives who may not be ready to hear this story for different reasons. For their own story, it may trigger them. They may not want to hear it. They may not know what to do. And so this is a consideration to think about the people in your life, and sometimes even identifying a few of them, jotting them down, of who have I told things to before, who has been able to give me what I need, to support me in the way that I need, and to be the audience that is helpful, supportive, caring, and to think about that. Thinking about what it is that you are sharing. What is the story? What aspects of the story are you going to share? Are you going to tell the whole thing? Are you going to tell pieces? And that also can change given your audience, given the context, given your why. So again, these are things to consider as you think about sharing your story. What is it that you want to share? What is it that you want to communicate? Sometimes we tell facts and we just give the facts of the story, the nuts and bolts of the story. And then when we can also include emotions and thoughts and reflections, our stories change over time. Our stories can evolve with us because the meaning that we make from them can change throughout the different times in our lives. Moving on to when and where, the context, the consideration of the context of when and where you will share this story, the timing. The timing is important. especially when you're thinking about what it is you're sharing. So thinking about how to share, when to share, where to share, to whom you're sharing, what you're sharing. These are all considerations. If it's an emotionally heavy story or narrative or piece of information that you are sharing, it might not be the best time to do it when you're sitting at a baseball game or gathering for a holiday celebration or on someone's birthday. Think about the energy, the compulsion, what is propelling you to share it now. And sometimes just pausing to think about that can be really helpful to know, is this the right time? Sometimes you can't plan it, and sometimes things just come out. And that is life. We can't always plan for these things, but when you are in this stage of consideration, these are some things to think about. So the why, the what, the when and where, the context. How will you share this story? How will you tell it? Again, how will you tell it in pieces? Will you tell it chronologically? Will you pause to allow for questions? Will you pause to insert your own meaning making and your emotions, your humor that may come? How you will tell your story and the platform, right? So are you sharing your story in words, verbally, to people listening to you either on the phone, via Zoom, in person? Are you texting? Are you emailing? Are you writing this story? Are you writing it in a journal to be read by you only, or to be read aloud, or to be compiled and organized later on into something else? Are you telling your story on social media? Where, to whom, how are you sharing this story? These are really important considerations. In order to do this in a way that feels authentic, genuine, understood, and offers you the support, the audience, the reactions that you need, another consideration within this question, within this, in the why are you sharing, what do you need, what do you hope to achieve from sharing this story, is so important to understand, consider, so that you know it before telling the story. Again, this could change as you share, and sometimes there are unexpected things that come, but it can be really helpful, again, to know what you need from this, and that takes a level of self-awareness, which we talk about here all the time. Taking care of yourself, nurturing yourself, body, mind, heart, soul, and spirit, deepening your own insight into what it is that you need in life, what it is that you are seeking in relationship, and also as this also applies to the context of sharing your story. We sometimes fall into that trap of feeling like taking time for ourselves is selfish, and absolutely the opposite is true in this case. Exploring your own self, your own needs, your own desires, your own objectives, all of these considerations, not only in sharing your story, but absolutely here, can help you ask for what you need. Asking for what you need in relationships can be so, so empowering for you and for the other person. For example, you may say to someone, I have something to share with you and I can't wait to share it. I'm so excited to share it. Or this is really hard, difficult to share. This is really emotional for me to share. I am a little scared, a little nervous to share. Saying these things before talking, before sharing, before delivering the information, the news, the story can be so helpful for you setting the stage, can be so helpful for the listener. Moving into that listening, it can be helpful to tell and ask for exactly what you need. I need you to listen. That's all. I say this a lot to my husband who likes to solve problems and give advice. I know you know someone like that in your life. And sometimes that is what I need. Sometimes I'm like, I need your perspective on this. I need you to help me out with this. Help me strategize. And there are times when I just need a listening ear. And so I'll say, I'm going to share something with you, and I just need you to listen right now, right? Because maybe in the future we'll come back to it and then I'll need some problem solving, or then I'll want some advice. But it also takes the pressure off of the listener when you can say, you don't need to solve this problem for me. You don't need to tell me what to do. I don't want that right now. I need to say it out loud, because sometimes even just saying it out loud, whether someone's listening or not. So even if it's just your car, I do that too. Conversations with my steering wheel. Just the act of saying it out loud can be helpful for you to make sense of it, to process it, to go, oh, wow, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. But ask for what you need. Of course, you must consider the audience for that. Can this person, can these people give you what you need? And all of these are connected. The trust, the safety, the age, the developmental level again. And sometimes that means finding a group, a community, a support group who has been through, who has experienced something similar. Because sometimes as the listener, we hear a story, we hear the context, we hear the facts, and one of the ways that we hear it is by processing it, filtering it through our own experience. That can be helpful. It can also not always be helpful. Sometimes it's not the most helpful thing. To say, oh, me too, I've experienced the same thing. Right? Has that happened to you? Sometimes, absolutely. Sometimes not so much. Because it can be minimizing, especially when this is something that is uniquely yours and emotional and impactful and meaningful. So considerations for the listener. You don't always have to solve it, give advice. One of the most powerful responses that you can give is, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing. Another one is, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry you went through that. If they are telling you something emotionally charged, emotionally heavy, emotionally painful or significant, or that is so great, congratulations, if it's an exciting piece of news. The listener, tuning into your own reaction to the story can be really helpful, and helpful to offer the support, the attention. Sometimes we need reassurance. Sometimes we need encouragement, right? I need you to tell me everything's going to be okay. And sometimes we can't. Sometimes we can't know that, but we can say, I'm here for you. I want to help you. Please let me help you. Reach out anytime. I'm here for you. I am here for you. Because even if you are not able to identify with the context, the facts of the story, the actual experience. Someone shares something that happened or that they survived or that occurred, and you're like, oh, I don't know what to say. That never happened to me. Oh, what do I say, right? And it's uncomfortable. This is when we invite you to listen also for the other aspects of the story, the emotions that are there, the fear, the sadness, the grief, the embarrassment, the jealousy, the joy, the excitement, the shame. When you can tune in, because hey, we've experienced those, all of them. When you can connect on that level, it is powerful. I think of my own life and places, the friends, the family members that I can connect with in that way. And I love those relationships. And one of the most powerful things that I love about my work is the group therapy aspect, the gathering of people together, and when they connect on different levels, right? So yes, it can be helpful to say, I know exactly what you're talking about because I have a family member who we have the same kind of issues with or concerns with, or, right? Like my daughter did this, my son did this, my partner did this. I get it. And you can do that in lots of different places. You can chat about those things at a baseball game, at the grocery store line sometimes. When we tune into the emotion, the meaning, the spirit, the soul of the story, what it does in our bodies. Yes, breathe. Breathing, breathing, breathing. Pausing, allowing the silence. These are all considerations, aspects of the story. There's a fine line sometimes between unloading, dumping, and sharing. Consider that when you are considering sharing your story. That's why therapy can be so helpful. It also, again, as I said earlier, is a privilege, and why I'm here helping all of us recognize the places in our lives right now where we have the opportunity to share, to seek support, to ask for what we need. And if you're not ready, if the time is not right for you to share it with another person, write it down. Write it in a journal. Write it on a piece of paper. If it's too painful to hold on to or you're afraid someone might find it, write it down and rip it up. That's okay. Write it down and burn it. If that's part of the consideration, if there's not safety in your home right now. You can also share your story on NAMI.org, NAMI.org, anonymously, and you can read the stories of others. There is a power in sharing, there is a power in listening, there is a power, a magic in connecting with others in the sharing of our stories. The facts, the context, the emotions, the implications, the meaning that we make. And sometimes there's no way to predict, lots of times, there's no way to predict the other amazing things that can come when we share. The what, the why, the when, the where, the how, and to whom. It may be time just for you to start writing a few minutes a day. You can start at the very beginning. You can start today and work backwards. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It can be unorganized. It can be a jumble. You can set a timer and just start writing and see where your pen takes you. I love writing. Actually, pen to paper is an amazing aspect of healing. It doesn't have to be done that way. Share your story. Share this story. Share this with someone that you love. This is how we spread it. This is how we spread the love, share the power. Send this episode to someone that you love, someone who may need to hear this, as a listener, as a sharer. And I invite you to come back because we have some amazing, amazing things coming in the weeks, in the months to come. I'm so excited to be with you here week after week. If you have a few extra moments, I would love to hear from you. I would love if you could give a rating of 5 stars, would be great. And a review. I love to read them. I love to share them here. It is my hope that this is meaningful to you. And I cannot wait to connect with you again next time. Take care. Thank you for connecting on this episode of the podcast, Empowered by Design. For further connection, subscribe to my email list at drliz.com to be sure that you are in the loop for exciting news, events, and resources. You can also follow me on social media at Dr. Liz and at Visionistas by Design. I invite you to subscribe to this podcast and send this episode to one of your people in order to share the love, spread the power. This podcast is designed to inspire, educate, and empower you to pursue your dreams with intentional vision. This podcast is not meant to be a substitute for psychological treatment or a working relationship with a licensed mental health professional. For more information on connecting with mental health resources in your area, visit drliz.com and click on resources. Thank you again for connecting. And remember, trust the heart, work your vision, dream, design, deliver.